playing through the first time, going in a second time, and having your upgrade, like the plasma cutter, having that one upgrade that allows you to knock over necromorphs when you melee them.
Yeah.
So useful.
I saved so much ammo because I was just like, smack, stomp, stomp, stomp. Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Nerd Switch podcast. My name is Dylan, and joining me today once again is my good friend and fellow nerd Jeremiah.
Hello, everybody. It's been forever.
Back again. Always glad to have him. Star of the show. Undeniably the best of us, Mr. Kyle.
Glad to be here.
So today, fairly simple, just another review for you guys. We recently played through the 2023 remake of a horror classic known as Dead Space, a game we've kind of hyped up on our previous episodes. Finally upon us, we've all played through it, and today we're just gonna give our thoughts, let you know what we think about the game. You know, does it live up to the hype? Is it better than Callisto Protocol? All that fun stuff. Yes, the spoiler alert, yes. But before we dive into that today, how are you guys doing? You guys having a good weekend?
Doing pretty well. It's been pretty good. Been a nice long weekend, which has been nice.
Yeah. I've been busy this weekend, so this will be my one day to relax after I kick you guys out. And how you doing, Mr. Kyle?
You know, not too shabby. Taking it one day at a time here.
Yeah, play lots of games this weekend.
I did. Quite a bit of our next episode, I'll tell you that.
There you go.
So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and just flip the switch and dive right into our Dead Space Remake review. What's the Dead Space theme?
Yeah, it's still creepy. That works.
I would be scared if I heard that in the dark.
So yeah, I was very, very excited for this game. I'm a massive Dead Space fan. Dead Space 1 and 2 were like definitely in my upper echelon of games. Even though they're pretty old, they just hold up extremely well. And I think there was even an argument that Dead Space didn't really need to be remade. But like after having it, I'm so
glad it was.
Yeah.
No regrets.
It's like they took this amazing game and just made it perfect, in my opinion. And I know perfect's like a really hard term to throw at something, but to me, you know, biases and all. But yeah, so we're going to break it down kind of category by category. So we'll start by talking about kind of the story, the world, and the characters to familiarize you with the title we're talking about if you don't know. It is a game that originally came out in 2008, so I'm sure it's one that a lot of people are at least familiar with if they haven't played it. But yeah, so we'll start there. Just starting with the story itself, I will pull up the IMDb to once again make myself sound smarter while I talk about it. So set in the 26th century... Oh god, I'm dyslexic. Set in the 26th century... The story follows engineer Isaac Clarke on a mission to repair the USG Ishimura, a mining spaceship that has been overrun by undead creatures called necromorphs. And yeah, so it's like a very standard setup for a horror title where you have ominous ship floating in space, sends out distress signal, you're sent there on a repair mission. You arrive with your team and very quickly realize, you know, something terrible's happened. And as stereotypical as it is, both in 2008 and now again in 2023, this is still one of the strongest starts to a video game that, like, I personally have. I mean, you have titles like The Last of Us, maybe like BioShock, titles like that where you always kind of remember the beginning of the game, and this is one of those games for me.
Yeah.
But the story itself is just really good, and this remake has done the work to make it even better, which we'll kind of go more in depth on. But what did you guys think with the overall story of the game? And one thing that's interesting to preface before we talk about it, so me and Jeremiah have played the game before. I don't think Jeremiah beat it initially.
I don't think I finished it, but I got really close.
Yeah. So we've had experience with the original release, but uniquely and thankfully for the review, Mr. Kyle over here never played the 2008 version, so he has that fresh perspective with new eyes.
Yes.
So what did you guys think of the overall story without really spoiling? I mean, it's an old game, but to avoid like the big spoilers.
We'll start with you, Kyle. Get that fresh start.
I thought the story was wonderful.
Yeah.
Like the way you're just thrown into it, and you can feel a sense of urgency because like you're not just coming to save any ordinary ship. This is the USG's like crown jewel, and they mention it in the game, and so the main characters don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. You're just there to try and repair something, and boy, did you just get thrown into the fire. Because I played it the way you recommended. Lights off, headphones on, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I wish I didn't put the headphones on.
Because when I talked to you, it didn't even seem like you knew that it was a horror title.
No, I knew of the original game as far as you're in space.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
See, like, my favorite thing, too, talking to you about it, is that you were told that it's like, oh, I don't really like typical horror games like Outlast where you only can run and you can't really fight back or anything.
Yes,
and you don't like those games.
That's my big thing is being chased.
Yeah.
And just having to like turn and see if they're still there, but they're coming out quicker, and you just gotta run and hope they're falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to you about it, and you're like, oh, don't worry about it, just play it. That's the first part of the game.
First thing that comes up.
Yeah, you just have to run, and you can't fight back.
But it's so good.
It is so good.
It's only
The way they did that.
the shortest moment, but
Yeah.
in that moment, it pulls you in.
Yeah.
And that's like what sets it apart is that it's like, okay, this is setting you into this. Like, I cannot fight back. What am I going to do? What am I getting myself into?
Yes.
And that's what starts the story. And that's why I really enjoy this.
Right.
Like,
And they made the necromorphs creepy.
yes.
like I said, I didn't know what to expect at all, and all of a sudden, that the main standard one just comes at me out of nowhere. I'm terrified.
It is easily one of my favorite designs for like a humanoid whatever. Like I'm a massive fan of
Monster.
Alien, and I've always loved the xenomorph design, but like I feel like the necromorph would be a close second because remember like clear back when we talked about like the whole Uncanny Valley. Like the Dead Space team, I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but they had back in the day a video with the original director of the game where he talked about the process of like designing the necromorphs, and he wanted them to be like as human as possible, but you know obviously not. And that fits in Uncanny Valley because we recognize it as like being a human being or used to be a human being because the way that the necromorph functions, it's basically like a parasite sort of. Like it is correct in saying that they're undead because you know you have the people die, they get infected by a certain kind of necromorph and then become a I forget the term.
Mutation?
Yeah, they have terms for the different types of necromorphs, but
Yeah.
the one thing that I loved that they explain in the game is like there's the kind of necromorph that infects corpses to turn them into necromorph, and then there's the kind of necromorph that makes the corpses to infect. And I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone has a purpose.
Yeah. And then there's a necromorph that gets donuts and coffee for the other necromorphs.
Unpaid intern.
So,
Every
yeah.
group needs those
Everyone.
unpaid interns.
But yeah, the design for the necromorph has always been a favorite of mine, and they amped it up in this game because so like the original game's all about dismemberment, which we'll talk more like when we get to the gameplay. But they added a really cool feature in this game where there's actually like layers implemented to the actual necromorph. So you'll notice like instead of shooting and a leg comes clean off, you'll like get a ton of skin off and it'll start to narrow to the point where you can see the bone, which was a really cool detail, but also like super gross. But
Yeah, or like
It's
the
the
little
gory
partially
details.
hanging off.
I
Yeah.
mean, I really like that. And another recent game that did that was Doom
Yeah.
Eternal. That's the game that kind of like added on to this is that like enemies taking damage.
Mhm.
As the more damage you do, the weaker they are, and the
Yeah.
closer they are to actually being killed.
Right, but
You
it
can
actually
visually
like,
see the damage.
Yeah,
that
to
you're
get that
causing.
visual aspect to it is what's so cool.
right. So yeah, but talking about the story here, like there's not a lot to really get into with the spoilers aside from kind of key points with unitology, I guess, and how that's involved, which for those who don't know, unitology is like the fanatic religion within Dead Space, which they say is not based on Scientology, but there's some pretty clear like lines to see that connect them.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's basically this church that worships these artifacts called markers, which are essentially what kind of influence and create the necromorphs in a way. But yeah, unitology is involved a lot, and there's a lot of people on the ship that you're on, the USG Ishimura, that are involved in unitology, and it kind of develops into how the story unfolds and the information you get. But yeah, the main thing also to talk about here is just how does... Oh.
He's not using kinesis at
He's
all.
just pushing it.
Oh.
He's just guiding it, and it's taking way too long.
Oh. I didn't notice.
Yeah.
He did it for all 5 asteroids. He did not use his kinesis.
He's trying, man.
What a dum-dum. But yeah, the main thing to talk about with this remake, obviously, is how does it take the story of the original 2008 release and, change it, modify it, make it better, maybe. And I think it really does make some crucial improvements.
Yep.
For one, this is a change I loved when they did Dead Space 2, which is they gave Isaac a voice. So the original voice actor is back reprising his role in this game. Gunnar Wright, I think's his name, but he's really good, and giving Isaac a voice in this game does one thing that really works for the story, which is allowing Isaac to be a proactive character instead of a reactive character.
Mm-hmm.
When you get these situations where one of the ship's like key systems need to be repaired, Isaac is now the one telling, Daniels and Hammond, he's like, hey, I need to go repair this if we want to have any chance of doing this, There's a explanation for A to B rather than you just being told to go to A to B. Isaac's the one who's now guiding that as your main protagonist, which is something I really like. And then we also get improvements with side missions that have been introduced to the game, which give you a little more background with key characters such as Nicole, which is Isaac's main reason for being on the Ishimura. It's his girlfriend who was working there and, was sending him transmissions, and then he doesn't know if she's still okay because of the distress signal. And then obviously getting on the Ishimura and seeing the state it's in, the whole time. With a voice, he's now, concerned about her well-being and trying to follow her quest line to find out what happened.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was new.
Yeah, the side missions are all new. They were out there.
Yeah.
So you get a little more background with Nicole and, Dr. Mercer and everything like that.
A lot of the original was mostly the audio diaries and the audio logs that you would read about this.
The audio logs were wonderful. I
Yeah,
wanted to listen to every second of all of them.
I don't read all of the text logs, but I definitely paid a lot of attention to the audio logs, and they're really good. And the one thing me and Jeremiah panned Callisto Protocol for was Callisto Protocol, if you had an audio log, it made you, go to your menu and watch it, and you couldn't move around. Because both games are focused on that, no HUD kind of system, but this game does it so much better, because, you can pick up that audio log and you get the little text bubble, but you're still free to move around the environment while you listen to it.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So, yeah, really good. There's a side mission that expands on Dr. Mercer and the Hunter, which...
That was a really cool side mission. I like that.
Oh, I hated the Hunter.
I also hate that.
I hated it.
He stresses me out.
Yeah.
He did at first, but, after, my, initial playthrough on this one, at first it was just okay, I know what to expect. I'm ready for it. My second playthrough of the remake, I was just I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's more stressful for me just in terms of he's gonna make me use all this ammo and he won't even die.
Yeah, exactly. You can't kill him. You're just gonna slow him down.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get it in one run.
All you gotta do, put him in a room like a closet or something that doesn't have another door, and then just let the door close. You'll be fine.
Oh. That's cheating.
See, that's what I did.
That's what you're supposed to
and
do.
then my power cell disappeared.
Don't put your power cell in the door. Easy solution.
Fair.
Yeah, but
Just push it around like this guy does. Don't pick it up. Push it around.
But you get some background there with kind of who the hunter actually is, which is cool, because I don't think it's something that was super expanded on in the first game. And then, there's new dialogue that's introduced with Isaac being a voiced character. It creates a lot of opportunities to, expand on the story and all that good stuff. But just everything they did, I see strictly as an improvement. I don't think there's any change they made that made it worse. I just think everything was good. Even the main characters... with Zach Hammond and Kendra Daniels, they were both really improved, especially Kendra Daniels, because in the first game I didn't really like her all that much, but in this game she is fleshed out a little more and not as bad.
Absolutely, definitely agree. I mean, not only was their story that was changed, but they also changed the weapons themselves, to having alternates, to your upgrades to the game. All of that had an overhaul as well, and they did such a good job with all the changes they made.
Right.
Funniest one was, for me, was the plasma gun, or the plasma rifle. The rifle's alternate, it just made you crouch and the gun would point up, but all the barrels pointed out and shot around
It'd be like
in a
sprinkler.
circle.
I
So
don't know how to feel about
the
that.
grenade launcher was not a thing, basically. So all you could do was just point it up and just hope you get all the hits that you need.
Right.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, we'll dive a bit more into some of those changes when we get to the gameplay, but with the story itself, as far as listing what I like and what I didn't like, we had a laugh about this before we started recording, but my note for what I liked is everything, and the note for what I didn't like is just nothing, LOL. Yeah, really good stuff. But with that, I mean, did you guys, I don't know, did you have any issues with the story, or did...
No,
Not at all, honestly.
I'd love to critique it in some form or fashion, but it had me pulled in the entire time.
Yeah.
Like I kept, you go through one chapter and it just leads you on to the next. You want to keep playing
Right.
over and over and over again.
I
there's
know.
no point where you just want to put it down.
Right. I know some people might not like the approach. There's a lot of, I guess, scenarios in the game where it's go fix A to go to B, but then you try to go to B, and they're like, wait, you got to go fix this before you can fix this. And I can see some people maybe having issues with that, which definitely in the 2008 release, I think would be more apparent. But I feel like the way they set it up in this game, it just flows so much better.
I thought they did a really good job. The fact that the whole ship was open, no load screens, it was very quick.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good point. No load screens.
In the original game, when you took the tram, it load screened.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this game made it so that the entire ship is accessible.
Right.
And the idea that the tram is like a quick route, but all paths, there was a pathway through the entire ship to each area. And I liked that. It's a very fluid system. It's not super linear. There's ways you can get there. And you have one set path to go unlock the tram.
Right.
And once it's unlocked, you can use that freely.
And I know it's such a small detail to make the tram real time, but I think it really does so much for the game because it really boosts that immersion and makes the Ishimura feel like a connected, place that you're in. And let's go ahead and jump onto the gameplay because it kind of ties in here, but the gameplay for the 2008 release of Dead Space was widely celebrated. People loved it. I still love it, and it holds up extremely well. But this game just again takes what was already great and just in my mind makes it essentially perfect. The gameplay itself is just awesome. Prior to Dead Space, any sort of zombie title, it's always focused on the stereotypical headshot. Get the kill, whatever. Dead Space uniquely swapped that, and you had to focus on dismemberment. These necromorphs are fast, they're dangerous, but if you cut off their legs, they're crawling. If you cut off their arms, they can't deal as much damage to you.
Headfoot.
Funnily enough, if you shoot the head off a necromorph, what they do is they get more aggressive.
Yeah.
So the game actively prompts you to use your tools, and literally tools, because again, you're an engineer. You're given weapons like the plasma cutter, the ripper, like a saw blade that you just shoot out at these enemies, and it just makes the gameplay so good because it's unique. Like, I'd never seen a game do something like that, and at this point in my life, I've played a lot of horror titles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dismemberment's not, I don't think, a huge aspect of really any other game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, like you said, a very unique take that I thought was very cool and enjoyed.
Yeah.
It's a different thing that you're just not used to having to focus on, is cutting limbs off.
Right. Yeah, so we can shift over, so, like, talking talking about like the weapon and upgrade system, it's a key part of any game sort of like this. Something we talked about with Callisto Protocol. Maybe not being as good, but the upgrade system here is really good. Where you have power nodes you find throughout the ship. The more you explore, the more likely you're to find ways to upgrade your guns and suit. And the upgrade system's just, even in the original release, was good, but in this release again has just been improved. You now can get weapon upgrades, which allows, further enhancements, again, the more you explore. The game has, like, a security system, too, now, where you can upgrade your security access.
A lot of the security access was, like, story-made,
Yeah.
but then they have a side mission that gives you a max security for specific rooms and objects, like chests.
Right. And that's where, with New Game Plus, which thankfully is available on release,
Like, it should be.
Callisto Protocol again.
Shame.
I know. But yeah, it just makes it really good. Like, playing through the first time, going in a second time, and having your upgrade. Like, the plasma cutter, having that one upgrade that allows you to knock over necromorphs when you melee them.
Yeah.
So useful.
I saved so much ammo because I was just like, smack, stomp, stomp, stomp. Also, there's a stomp button. Come on. If every game had a stomp button, I would just stomp it.
I know. One of my favorite things is, like, Dying Light always had, like, a kick button, which just made it so much more natural to just be able to move things out of the way.
Right. The combat, like we just talked about, it's really good. The weapons are all very responsive, and you have the tools to navigate the system. Like, there's a healthy variety of weapons in the game, and they all have, alt fire modes, which even increases that combat diversity. And then one big thing that I think was a massive improvement is the zero gravity. Because anyone who played the original Dead Space will let you know that the zero G sequences were very, like, disorienting.
Okay.
And not to say it's not disorienting, because it's zero gravity, but the way they did it, for your information, Mr. Kyle, in the first game, so you're essentially, there's no free floating, you're always stuck to a platform, but you would have the option to go from one platform to another. And so you would, like, select a platform, hit a button, jump over, stick to that platform, and that's how you would have to navigate those sequences instead of, like, free floating.
Okay, yeah, because how they have it now, it just seems natural. Like,
It's the suit, you're able to kind of maneuver yourself,
Right.
you have the oxygen level. The original game, like he was saying, it's that you have the set platform there, and you would just jump to it and land on your feet, and then be upside down or on the side. And you have to maneuver along this platform to then jump to the next platform to get all the way around a room.
Yeah, it seems like a lot to think about just to try to maneuver
Like,
through that room.
it wasn't terrible. It was just, it could get confusing fairly easily and disorienting, which is probably the purpose, but...
Yeah,
I definitely, like, when they did Dead Space 2, that's what they changed as well. Dead Space 2's zero gravity was much more similar to this game.
Okay.
But this game really refines it and makes it just feel well-tuned. Because, like, you've got the thrusters, the rotation, there's even a button to just auto-level yourself, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of improvements there. And, I mean, even for the 2008 release, just a lot of the gameplay mechanics were just ahead of their time. And the game just takes something that was already good and just makes it even better. You get some cool tools like with stasis and kinesis, being able to lift up objects and move them or throw them, being able to slow down enemies is huge. I've definitely used stasis a lot more in my New Game Plus playthrough where I'm playing on a harder difficulty and ammo consumption's a little more important.
Yep.
But yeah, and again, just no loading screen in the game at all whatsoever, and really impressive time to get from the menu into the game as well. It just like throws you right in.
I like how when you would start try to continue your game, it just kind of zooms out to your character.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
And one other minor change. So initially in the 2008 release, when it came to getting new weapons, you had to actually buy them in the store. Aside from the plasma cutter, that was the only one I think that you got organically. Maybe the pulse rifle too, but I don't quite remember.
I think so. I think there was the 3 end weapons, like the line rifle. I forget the beam rifle one.
Contact beam.
Contact beam, and then the force gun. I know those ones you had to buy initially. I think the flamethrower was something you find.
Maybe it was the first 4: the plasma cutter, pulse rifle, ripper, and flamethrower.
Yeah, I think those ones were like the original ones you find because they were somebody that was using it.
Yeah.
And that's how you found it.
Okay. But yeah, in this game, all of the weapons you can find organically in the environment. Some of them you have to explore. Like, I completely missed the line gun in my first playthrough.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What were you guys' favorite weapons to use?
It's always the plasma cutter. I mean, it's just so good.
Definitely, the plasma cutter is definitely like one of my all-time favorite weapons.
Yeah.
For my first playthrough, I only used the first 4 you get. So plasma cutter, pulse rifle, the ripper, and the flamethrower.
Okay.
I didn't use the other ones because I knew they are a lot stronger, and I wanted to just kind of use the original 4, test them out, see all the new weapons, and then the next playthrough be like, okay, I'll go use those. Yeah. Of course, now I can't use them until my 3rd playthrough because I'm trying to do plasma cutter only.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do really love the line gun. It was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
What was your favorite?
I mean, plasma cutter is always a good option, especially once you get it fully upgraded.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the contact beam as well.
Contact beam was really cool.
Yeah.
They did the sound effect, the look for it looked really good on the gun.
The sounds in the game altogether just immersed you into this environment, and it was absolutely perfect.
Right.
I always pictured these the grotesque, the growth all over the place.
Yeah.
I always pictured just the sound effects for those, which is spot on and gross.
Well, and just
everything.
The music.
Yeah.
The music too, it made it so much creepier.
Yeah. So one last thing with the gameplay here, and this is actually a pretty big thing too, is changes they made to how some parts of the game actually worked and how they actually played. One thing a lot of people didn't like with the first Dead Space, and you probably don't even know about this, Kyle, but originally the sequences where you had to line up the ADS cannons, so
much harder in the original game,
and just it didn't fit gameplay wise. It was like so they put you in a turret essentially, and you're sitting there in the cannon, and you're pointing.
You're manually shooting the cannons in a turret seat. And they're just constantly coming at you.
Like House of the Dead kind of gameplay, where you're just pointing.
Oh
yeah.
Bah, 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 bah. No, I liked how they did it as far as
it was.
You can still move around and while
Yep.
still controlling the turret.
It was so much easier in this one for sure, because in the original, I remember dying in that spot so many times because asteroids were constantly coming, and you're only getting that one line to fire at. You've got 3 coming at you.
You don't even get aim assist either. You had to just aim. And it was just annoying, but this game, they made those sections so much better. The initial section where you're lining up the ADS cannons, you're just freeform, zero gravity, sinking with the cannon, and then manually aiming at the asteroids. And then even more so, not the first fight with the Leviathan, but the second fight where he's attached itself to the exterior of the ship. Mm-hmm. You're again freeform instead of the initial where you would be sat in a turret just kind of shooting at it.
Yeah.
So massively improved in my opinion. I think that was one of the weakest parts of the initial game.
Personally, even like the change to the first fight with the Leviathan was quite different because again, you got to float.
Yeah,
where in the first one, you're on the platform, but you can go all the way around and walk. So the difference was like it could block your path. It would just kind of like hit the platform, and you couldn't go that way, so you had to go the other way. And the new remake, though, you just get to float around and just kind of totally avoid stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, there's some new stuff added with, like, new areas you can go to. The zero gravity helps a lot with that optional exploration, like being able to go into the hangar in zero gravity and kind of float around and do some exploring. They really expanded with, like, some of the optional exploration, which, again, to draw back to Callisto Protocol from last year, like, that game had very minimal exploration. Like, its exploration was essentially linear.
Mm-hmm. You basically had one path to go, and then you would come across maybe one Y crossroad where you could go a different pathway and wander off, get some extra money or some other items, ammo, and then you'd go right back to your linear path.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess one other change they did make, because in 2008's release, some of the exploration you had to actually decide if you wanted to use a power node to unlock a door, which that I actually thought was kind of good, because, you know, puts you in a situation where do you want to upgrade your weapon more or lose that resource to maybe gain, like, ammo or health.
Right.
And so that's maybe one thing I would have liked to see stay in the game, but again, I'm not, like, heartbroken that it's gone.
I like that they kind of just like hid doors, like they locked them, and you had to like kind of solve a small puzzle.
Yeah, well, that's essentially what the security system replaced as well. Like you can do the side quest to get the max security override to get those high value areas. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything with the gameplay. Just similarly for me, for like with the story, there's nothing I don't like about it.
Yeah, what didn't I like? Nothing again.
Yeah.
But we can jump up to the third part here, which another place that the game just excels, which is the audio, the visuals, and the performance. Kyle, I know you had a little bit of bad luck in this area, which we'll talk about. But just first with the audio, like the way that the sound is designed in this game is just really impressive. Like, they really overhauled it for, like, that 3D audio, and that's why I told you really need to play with a headset.
Yes.
Because you can hear everything. Like, every little thump and scrape in the vents to the creaks of the ship.
That's why I love this game, because it's that, like, that pull-in of not really a sound, like, overhaul.
Yeah.
It's, like, everything is there for a reason. You're on a massive spaceship. It's going to be noisy.
Right.
But then there's also the enemies that are wandering around. And they can jump out. And sometimes you think you hear a noise and it's nothing. Other times you'll hear a noise, think it's nothing, and they come right behind you. It's great.
Yeah, I definitely got jump scared a few more times in this one than the original, which, again, is impressive considering I had played that initial release, like, several times. But they sneak up on you a lot more in this game.
Yes, and with the audio, between, like you said, just the full immersion of having a headset on and hearing every sound and creak from the ship, to the music that goes with it, which is so eerie and terrifying. It makes it so much better than it would have been without it. Like, right. It's a terrifying game, at least at first. Then it just moves on to stress.
Yeah.
And
that's one thing I love too, because the game like starts out very high stress, but like as you get the tools and you know familiarize with the situation, you get to a point where you go from being vulnerable to just being like badass.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, like come on, is that all you got? Which I just love when games kind of give you the natural progression to get to that state. But yeah, the audio just really great. I remember. Everything is still here that was in the first game. Like the screeching of the tram as it gets closer was always a nice detail. The relief you feel as the new chapter noise comes up, which was
one step closer.
Yeah.
One step closer.
The one room, I don't know if it was like an engine room or what, but you know that one room that's just like blaringly loud.
Yeah.
But that one like boiler room, whatever it is, where it's extremely loud. One YouTuber I watched that I told you guys about, Indie Mouse, I laughed because he was in that room in his video and you can barely hear him talk. And he's like, I just wanted to tell you guys something. It's really personal, something I've never told, and you can barely hear him. And I'm like, it's so funny. But
Is that the one on the mining level?
I think it's...
Because there might be one or two rooms that are just...
It's one of the areas that...
It's a small room, right?
Yeah. It's super small.
Like, it's literally just like you walk in, small room.
And it's just like
yeah, it's just super loud. Yeah.
And I think it's just like a path that connects you from one area to the next. But just details.
Honestly,
like
it sounds like a train going through.
Yeah. So yeah, the audio just really good. Visuals, again, this game is graphically just really good looking. Like, I don't think I had any issues with the overall presentation itself. Visually, like enemies, like we talked about with the layering that they now have, like when you shoot and the skin comes off, it's a visual detail that just adds so much. But performance, I did have one technical issue in the game in my playthrough, which is just where I would load into the game once in a while and the camera would be like...
It'd be stuck.
Yeah, it'd be stuck,
the
super zoomed in.
location.
But then if you move Isaac around, like Isaac is separated from the camera and you're like moving Isaac in front of the camera. And I had to reload the game to fix it. And it happened probably like 5 or 6 times, which I think it's patched now. So, like, that's the only issue I had, which I'm not even really willing to dock the game for it because everything else was so good.
Honestly, it was such a small, like, inconvenience. That It's just like, oh, well, back to main menu.
Yeah.
Start it up again.
If it was, like, 2010 and our load screens were, like, 3 minutes, I'd maybe be a little more annoyed. But you get right into the game when you load, so it wasn't too bad. But unfortunately, Mr. Kyle had some unlucky performance issues.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you kind of broke the game yourself.
One of them was my fault. One of them was my fault. Yes.
But tell us about what happened.
Yeah, let's start with the one that wasn't my fault. Okay. So there are multiple rooms, different points in the game where you are, the area you're in, gets locked down until you defeat all the enemies. And in this particular room, I defeat all the enemies, kill them all, and then the room doesn't unlock for me. There's nowhere for me to go. I mean, the first time I'm, scavenging everything, trying to figure out if there's something I missed.
Right.
But nothing. So I reload a few times, and it's the same thing until I finally just decide to walk onto that little platform of electricity, pop and blow up.
I give up. I give up in life.
It reloaded, I kill all the enemies, and then it worked that time.
Yeah. Okay.
So that one wasn't too bad. But then one of those fun times when you're running away from the hunter.
Right.
I needed to get a specific power cell to unlock a door. And I'm in this small closet where the power cell is, the door shuts behind me. I think the hunter's gone. And so I open the door while I have the power cell. I've got it with kinesis. And the hunter's right there still. I was like, oh crap. And then start shooting him. The power cell drops in the middle of the door frame. I back up. The door shuts and pushes it into the ground. And it doesn't come back ever. Ever.
So, out of curiosity, like, we talked about it kind of pre-recording, because I'm like, well, I don't know if Kyle can, like, finish the game now.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
You even tried, like, reloading saves, right?
Yeah, I reloaded saves, and it never came back. So I was like, I'm going to have to go to, the mining area to grab one from, like, the elevator or something like that to see if I can just pull it and walk through the whole ship with it to try and get to where I need to go. But I ended up just kind of walking around trying to take a different path, and so I'm not sure if the door unlocked for me or if I found a different way, but I was able to get to where I needed to go.
So you just had like a fun side mission.
Yeah.
You had to repair
repair the damage you caused.
Yeah. The game was like, I'm not going to fix this problem for you. You did it to yourself.
Nice. But yeah, other than that, did you have any other issues? Like
No.
Okay.
I mean, there were a few floating bodies here and there.
Oh yeah, I did
Which-
have, I guess, one like visually funny glitch where a necromorph's arm, his arm kind of got stuck in the wall as he was running at me, so he's just sitting there like.
See, I kind of had the same thing, but it was an enemy that I like killed with kinesis by
Yeah.
skewering them to the wall,
Yeah.
and it was right next to a door, and he stayed there, chilled out, and he got stuck, and I proceeded onward, but I had to come back, and then I like walked through the door, and I turn, I just see glowing eyes and an arm flapping around. And it was my like only jump scare I gave myself by killing the enemy this way.
That's funny.
Oh yeah, those floating bodies. I think they're an enemy. I freak out for a second. And I'm like, oh, they're just
The,
they're already
those
dead.
eyes get you too.
Those eyes.
Those eyes.
Yeah, that was one thing that was present a lot in the first game, just the ragdoll physics for necromorphs after you killed them. Like, there'd be times you'd be walking and you'd just be, like, dragging a body along with you.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad to see it in this game, too, because it always made me laugh in the first game. But yeah, I think just with, like, the audio visuals and performance, besides that one technical issue we had, and then the unfortunate glitch, I guess, you had.
I think just the overall gameplay and everything else about it makes up for it. Like,
Yeah.
even with those like frustrating issues I couldn't figure out for however long it was, like the game was, it's too good for me to complain about still.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and push on to our final verdict. Just what I noted here, it's the Dead Space remake. It's just a remarkable fresh take on a survival horror classic. I mean, there's a great feeling that the dev really put a lot of care and attention into this project. And I'm pretty sure there's some people that were involved with the original release, you know, which is why I had such high hopes for Callisto Protocol, because the actual director of Dead Space was involved with that project.
They had the plan, but a lot of the like
Just the execution.
gameplay mechanics, the execution for them
Right.
didn't go as planned.
But the guys behind this game really did put in the time to like keep this remake faithful, but find their own ways to really improve it, to the point where I would even go as far as to say I now think this is my favorite Dead Space game, even over Dead Space 2, which I have a lot of love for. But yeah, it doesn't, like, when talking about remakes, this does not feel like a cash grab to me, kind of like when we talked about The Last of Us remake,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, this feels like a genuine remake, and I would,
Major improvements overall.
yeah, like, since Resident Evil 2's remake, which is the last remake I really had a lot of praise for, I think this is the best one I've seen. But yeah, it's just a really good example of what a remake should be, and I hope that other studios kind of use it going forward when considering, you know, bringing back these popular titles. And with that, it's really easy for me just to give this game a 10 out of 10. I really
10
don't.
out of 10.
I don't have an issue.
Yeah, this game did so well. It put everything together, adding new aspects to the game, new story, cutscenes that just immersed you even further into the story.
Right. And what about you, newcomer Kyle?
It was a wonderful game. It has to be a 10 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
I think just the way it pulled me into the story. Like, I was terrified at the beginning, but then, like we talked about, it turns from being scared to just stressed.
Right.
But between the visuals, the gameplay, the story, which is probably one of my favorite standalone storylines of a game I've ever played. But even with the issues that I had performance-wise, I don't think I can take that away from the game. It's too good to complain about.
Right. Yeah, and that's, like, every game I've ever given a 10 out of 10 to, like, none of them are really perfect games. Like, they'll have something that could technically bring it down, but if the game does the work to, like, make everything else good enough, like, I'm willing to forgive minor things
Yeah.
if what I get in exchange is just a really solid experience. And that's what I think I got from this game, and it really does, like, walk closely to the line in my eyes of, like, video game perfection.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that, I mean, because I've also played Dead Space 2 and 3. I know, Jeremiah, I don't think you've played either.
I haven't played much. I played like a tutorial demo of 3 a
Okay.
long time ago. I've seen gameplay for 2, and then I almost beat the original 1.
Okay. And Kyle, is fairly safe to say if you didn't play the first one, you probably didn't play 2 or 3?
No.
Okay.
No.
So yeah, one thing a lot of the fans of the franchise are now asking is like, what's next? And like me, I'm really hoping they just do the same for Dead Space 2.
I know they were going to take a break.
Yeah.
And then they want to pitch 2.
Right.
That's my hope.
So yeah, they've had the launch of the game. They're taking a break, rest up after the development cycle, but then they're going to be meeting with EA to discuss the future of the franchise. And the question that's in the air right now is, well, they could remake Dead Space 2, they could maybe do a Dead Space 4, or they can kind of soft reboot and continue with their own sequel.
Yep.
My personal hope is remake Dead Space 2, but make it a little longer, like add a lot more to the game. And if that leads to a Dead Space 3 remake, really overhaul Dead Space 3, like even story-wise, because 3 is a little rough. 3 is definitely the weakest. But that's what I would like to see, but I would also not complain if we just got like Dead Space 4 or a new sequel entirely. Seeing what they've done with this, I do trust them to handle it well. So yeah.
The fact that 3's not very good is kind of upsetting to me because this story, like I said, is so good. And I want to know more. Mm-hmm. But hopefully they can change a few things if they do end up remaking it.
Yeah.
Like you said, because it has to live up to this one, because the standard is set.
Yeah.
And if they remake Dead Space 2, I hope it lives up to this one.
I mean, I still really like Dead Space 2, but it's definitely a shorter experience. Because what happened, basically, is EA became more involved after the success of Dead Space 1. To where, like, Dead Space 2, there was a little more influence. Like, the game was a little more linear, had a little more action thrown in, but I feel like the game balanced it really well between, like, the set pieces and the survival horror aspects. But then 3, EA is like, no, it's got to be more broadly appealing. Like, we had Resident Evil 5 that sold pretty well. Give it co-op.
Oh, yeah.
And if you know, co-op and survival horror, they don't really mix.
Yeah. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. So yeah, it just led to 3 being very action-focused and just not very good. Like, it lost a lot of what made Dead Space 1 and 2 special.
Okay.
So that's what's unfortunately happened there, which if they decide to go the route of just remaking the original 3 really needs a lot of work. Like, I don't know if I care if they keep it co-op, but they would have to really do something just to...
You don't play co-op games anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, the last thing to talk about here, just a probably pretty brief spoiler discussion. Again, this is a game that came out originally in 2008, and spoiler-wise, not much changed, but there is some stuff that's new. So, spoiler warning to those who are still interested in playing the game. If you've never played it, we're just going to briefly talk about some stuff to kind of give our thoughts. First thing to you, Mr. Kyle, that I want to ask, with the chapters, did you ever notice the chapter titles? There's a classic Easter egg.
I didn't on my own.
Okay.
But Jeremiah was able to guide me and show me where to find it. And once I did complete the game, I looked at it and I thought that was just a really cool. That was a very cool just thing that they put in there.
Yeah.
It's such a horrifying game, and it was in front of your face the entire time.
For those who don't know, like when we talked earlier about Isaac's main reason for being on the Ishimura is to find Nicole. If you pay attention as you go from chapter to chapter, like if you have a separate save file for each chapter, you'll notice that the first letter in each chapter spells out Nicole is dead. So it tells you, like, from the beginning. I mean, you have to get to the last chapter, obviously, to finish it, but you can probably guess where it's going once you get to, like, Nicole is dead.
Nicole is dead.
Nicole is dancing. No, so just a really cool minor Easter egg that I always thought was really fun for that game. But the stuff with Nicole herself, so spoiler-wise, like, the marker has a lot of influence on people to where it can, like, psychologically make you see things. This is one thing that Dead Space 2 leans in on, is that, Isaac's time on the Ishimura really had a negative impact on him, to where In 2, he essentially has like early onset dementia.
Okay.
And he's like hallucinating, and he's seeing Nicole throughout the new place he's on in Dead Space 2, which makes some really good sequences. But this game, it does the work to set it up, and the marker has that influence to where, you get the chapters where Isaac is seeing Nicole and believing it's Nicole helping him through some of the later parts of the game.
See, I knew it wasn't her the entire time.
It's pretty obvious. Who's going to walk around being like, hey, honey, make us whole?
Yeah. But I didn't know who it was.
Right.
And that was what was pulling me along.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you really see the marker's influence, because like you get the section. One of my favorite parts of the original game is you go down a hallway and you just see this dude like banging his head against a wall.
Yeah.
Not to call back to Indie Mouse again, but his gag on that, he's like, oh, look, it's the Callisto Protocol devs seeing the reaction to Dead Space. He's like, boom, boom. But yeah, just really cool stuff with the marker and unitology. And you get the main plot with Dr. Mercer, who's like the antagonist on the Ishimura, is... they're getting the marker from Aegis 7, which is the planet that the Ishimura was, planet cracking. It's a mining ship, it's pulling up chunks of the planet for its resources. But they were there kind of off the books to get the marker and bring it to Earth, because unitologists are crazy and believe that everyone should essentially be converged into like the necromorphs. And that's the big political push for this game, and kind of what you're trying to thwart as Isaac as you go on, which is just some really cool. So like all the stuff with Nicole and the marker and unitology, that's where the spoilers lie in the game.
Did you see the hidden message in the hangar at all? When you first enter the game, you have the you land the ship, or crash in the ship. Mm-hmm. Come out, you walk out, and it tells you like USSG Ishimura.
Yeah.
If you come back to that hangar later on, the lights are all burnt out, and it gives you the secret message saying, us is you. Oh. So it kind of answers the question of who is us, make us whole.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why the whole thing is like, it's making you whole.
Okay.
And it kind of adds to his kind of like seeing things, getting confused on what he's seeing.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
But it was pretty cool. I like the little Easter egg they threw in there.
Yeah. Just really good stuff. And again, like, there's the one twist the game had initially was that Kendra Daniels is kind of another secret antagonist you find out in the end. She knew about the marker the whole time, and cleverly, throughout the game, she's trying to make Hammond look like the potentially bad guy, because he's actually involved with, was it EarthGov or something?
Yeah.
So she's like, you knew this artifact was here, didn't you? And she's trying to like make him look like the bad guy, which I knew all along because I played 2008 Dead Space.
See, I didn't think he was the bad guy, but I didn't expect her to play the part that she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because like with the initial game, she just wasn't a great character. Like, she was just a meanie.
Yeah.
She's actually pretty well done in this game, to the point where when she gets offed at the end, like when you're fighting the hive mind, I was kind of sad to see her go, but
I wanted her to stay on my side. Like,
I don't know. She was still pretty, harsh in the end, and it's just.
I feel like at that point you had to be, though.
I mean, to be fair, true.
Yeah.
She is trying to protect herself.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm dipping. I'm leaving you here, Isaac.
Right.
You could die. And then as soon as she gets grabbed, though, she's like, no, wait, you should help me first. And I'm like, no, peace. Be gone.
Her death in this remake, too, was, like, brutal.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Another thing I want to bring up, too, is one really funny Easter egg that I found. Mm-hmm. Did you both find the break room?
I tried to find it, but no.
So, it's a super small room, and it literally, if you read above the door, it says break room. I cannot remember what location it's in. It's a pretty early on room.
I might have.
It's a room you definitely go back through twice. Once the room is normal, it's just all metal, but then another time you go back through it and it's corroded and everything is like overgrowth over it.
Yeah.
So the break room, though, if you find this room, it has a TV screen in the room with a picture of the marker. and a little seance, blood red circle with symbols on the floor, and of handprints, or kind of like similar to handprints, and then footprints.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing that's really funny is it's a cheat code room as well. Not really for cheats.
Oh, look, it's right there.
Hey, look, there you go.
Oh, I just
There
walked
you
right
go.
through it.
Yeah, he
So-
doesn't care.
So that room, there are 3 codes you can implement that you can find throughout the map.
Mm-hmm.
One code, it's just like a symbol of like you either stomp or swing your weapon in a certain order. And one code will give you 2 modules for upgrades.
Oh, really?
Another one gives you a text log of like jumbled up code from the marker. And then the third one is hilarious.
Is that the song?
It gives you a sea shanty song
What?
compiled in the mix of like the USS Ishimura with the song. I think it's.
You ever heard the one sea shanty where it's like, we'll take our leave and go?
Yeah.
It's that.
That one.
But it's like, there once was a ship something in space. Or
Oh.
Yeah, no, they did
I
the.
found the room, but I didn't know any. Like, I guess I didn't look into it as much as I should.
I was looking up some stuff and I found that. And I was like, I want to go find this now, and I went and found it because I wanted to make sure it was real.
I
and I
find
did
the bowling alley though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's the bowling alley. That's just some grotesque like detail they threw in the game. Is
Yeah.
in the crew quarters. The crew was playing bowling with other crew members.
Oh boy.
Not
Whether they wanted them to or not.
yeah.
Heads will roll.
I love also the mini games they threw in there. They improved them. Like the shooting range was different.
Yeah.
The shooting range was an entire room.
So this was on the Valor, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That caught me too, because I was running through it and I'm like, yeah, shooting range, and then the lockdown started and I was like, fuck!
Should have known.
In the original game, the shooting range was that. It was
Yeah.
a shooting range, and you had to get like a certain score for prizes to unlock a bunch of items. The basketball game was
Yeah.
super fun.
Yeah.
I played through that, got all the items. I love those small things that they could throw in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
They had some really good stuff for this game. They improved upon it a lot.
Right. And so I'm like in progress on my New Game Plus playthrough, but I'm towards the end. But apparently, once you get to New Game Plus, you can find these marker fragments.
Yep.
And if you find all of them, you get like an alternate ending.
Yes.
Which is largely the same, but it gives you some dialogue between Isaac and Nicole.
Yep.
Which, for those, I mean, we're still in the spoiler section, but so initially, like, you beat the game, you're flying off, you take your helmet off, you're super relieved.
Mm-hmm.
You hear a little noise behind you. You look over, and Nicole's just chilling, like, "Hey, Isaac, what's up?" Ah!
Yeah. Yeah, which terrifying. Just saying, didn't expect that.
But I guess with the new secret ending, you actually talk to Nicole, and Isaac says something about, he's like, "There's something I need to take care of or build or whatever."
The big difference too is the ship is coded with the symbols.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac has started writing like all the different symbols of the marker,
Right.
And he
went full Sam Witwicky, man.
And see, oh, come on. But that's what really makes me think that we could see a Dead Space 2 remake, because that kind of hints at, Isaac's sanity, which is a big part of the second game.
I feel like, and again, not having played the second one, the fact that he's going to be hallucinating and just not in his right mind
Right.
will make it, if they do it the way they did with this game, it'll make it so much more terrifying than I can think of.
Yeah. I'm going to make one more Indie Mouse comparison.
go for it.
But he has a thing on his channel called the Cursed Elevator Count, which is, just any elevator where, like, something spooky happens or whatever. But he said Dead Space, the remake, holds the record for the most cursed elevators, because, like, you get the elevators that stop, or the elevator where you get a lockdown, like, on the elevator in the mining section.
Yeah, yeah.
and the one elevator that you open, and there's just a necromorph in it, and then of course, in the very opening of the game, the necromorph that tries to reopen the elevator you enter.
There's also the when you're on the bridge and you first go down the elevator after talking with Hammond. If you go down to the 3rd level, you hear a scream.
Right.
There's that. Which that one's funny. Like the one thing I've seen of that was Markiplier was playing it, and he's like, there's the option. He's like, oh, I need to go to the 1st level, but I want to go to the 3rd level. So he goes down. As he's going down, the scream occurs. He's like, I don't want to go to the 3rd level anymore.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much sums up the majority of it. There is one character I think we missed, which is actually a new character to the game with Dr. Elizabeth Cross, who I always forget the name of the section you're in on the ship, but it's like
it starts with an H, doesn't it? It's
Herbalics, something like that. I don't know. It's like
it's
the
cryonics, right?
No, there's cryonics, and then there's her area, and it's like
It's like a plant-based
Yeah.
area, they're growing stuff, but
Jungle sounds.
yeah.
it does have the jungle sounds. You can turn them off though.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm pretty sure, she is a new character, right?
I don't remember her from
Yeah.
the original 2008. Like I remember her audio logs, but that was it.
Right.
Like I definitely don't remember like her being like a live
physically being
character
there.
and
Yeah.
telling you stuff.
But I thought she was a good addition because she kind of navigates you through that part, dealing with the Leviathan and making the air more breathable.
Yeah, something that not just an engineer would know how to do.
Right. And again, to tie in how this game really cleans up the flow from objective to objective, because you get the part where you're dealing with Mercer, but then you find a random scientist in one of those doors over there where he's like, the air is killing us. You need to get whatever over to that area.
Yeah.
And just making that natural progression of A to B again. But
You bring up your map.
Yeah.
yeah, what's it called? And then lastly, this is one thing that was changed too that's kind of spoilery, but so the game gives an actual explanation for who you see as, you're Nicole. Because in the very end of the game, when Kendra reveals herself to be a doo-doo head, she's, holding Nicole at gunpoint, and then she has Isaac watch the recording he was watching at the beginning of the game, which is Nicole being like, I'm so glad you pushed me to take this job, whatever, seems totally fine, but then Kendra's like, you need to watch the rest of the recording.
So why did he not watch the rest of it to begin with?
I don't know. I don't remember the explanation.
I mean,
for
something was clearly going on too for the fact that we find more video footage of that they had a fight beforehand.
Yeah.
Because she is the way he met Nicole is through his mom, who was becoming a member of Unitology.
Yeah.
that. Right.
She saves him, or she tries to help her, but in doing so, her mom, Isaac's mom, kills herself.
Right.
And went on a kind of a spree almost.
Well, both of his parents end up dead, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think she killed him and herself.
Right.
And he blamed her for it. And they
Yeah.
actually got in a fight for this.
And that's all actually new. None of that's in the first
really?
game.
Yeah. All of this has been from the audio logs,
That's part of the side mission.
yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
side missions in there.
But yeah, so you get all that added in, and then, she has him watch the rest of the recording, and he finds out, Nicole, very soon after giving him that video, she just kills herself on camera. And so you get the reveal that Nicole's been dead the whole time, and then Isaac looks up, and she's no longer holding Nicole at gunpoint. It's
Cross.
Cross, yeah. And what they reveal uniquely is Isaac has been seeing Cross as Nicole, and Cross has been seeing Isaac as the
Temple.
Jacob Temple,
the other
Yeah.
which
engineer.
also sucks because he was kind of a new character too
Yeah.
that was staying alive until Mercer kills him later.
Right.
We were talking about the audio logs. You learn a lot about all the characters and the bodies that you may find, and
Right.
that one in the mining area when you get.
Are we thinking about
rig.
the same one?
I think so.
It was
Where he doesn't want to turn
he's
into
like,
one.
if I don't have limbs,
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't kill
I
anyone.
can't kill anyone. You just hear the scream
Yeah.
and the chop.
It's
One more. One more.
Okay, I have one more Indie Mouse comparison. Because he's listening to that part and he's like, oh man, at least turn off the recording first. Because he's like,
People are gonna find
one
this.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. You find these audio logs and you become attached to these characters that you haven't even met or
Right.
seen in game, and it all ties together.
Yeah, it's just, they did so much to make it even better. It's why it's just so easy for me to give it a 10. Great game. Highly recommend you guys check it out if you get a chance this year. It's already a very strong contender. I mean, obviously we're like early on in this year, but I could easily see this fighting for Game of the Year for me.
Yeah.
Bias is included because I'm already like a really big Dead Space fan, and this just did everything I wanted it to do and then some. So yeah, it's in the discussion for me for sure, but we'll see how things go. We have another episode where we'll be reviewing another big game.
Yes, we will.
Recently came out. So yeah, with that, we will go ahead and wrap things up here. If you made it to this point in the episode, we just want to thank you for taking the time to listen and, you know, to join us here as we talk about the things we love and enjoy. And with that, we hope to catch you guys in the next episode. Feel free to follow us on social media if you're so inclined. And, you know, if you're interested, we'll talk about another game with you here soon. So hope you guys have a good rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wee, 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 wee. Lots of chip clinking noises. I don't know.